Psalm 119, verses 81 through 88 tonight. Lesson entitled "The Wineskin and Smoke," and it comes directly from that passage. But as we look at it, David is a man searching for something. He's searching for salvation. Verses 81 and 82, "My soul longs for your salvation. I hope in your word. My eyes long for your promise. I ask, when will you comfort me?" Well, again, David is a man searching for salvation. He knows where to find the answer, but the answer's not there yet. At least, it's not in an understandable form for him. Why is that? Well, it's like there's a smoke or there's a fog that's surrounding the answer. And that fog or that smoke in reality is time, because it's going to take time. It was going to be about 1,000 years before the Christ would come and fully reveal what salvation was going to be like. But until that time, until salvation was fully given, each and every individual was searching for salvation in a way that it was almost like looking through, or as Paul says, looking in a glass darkly. You know, you look through a glass, but you're looking into a dark room. There's just, the answer's there, you just can't make it out. You just can't figure it out. So until the Messiah entered the human sphere, it was hard for men to understand what God was doing and why God was allowing a lot of things to happen that he was allowing to happen. Why were bad things happening to David? Why did God allow sin and death to come into the world? Well, without sin and death coming into the world, there'd be no test for human beings, and there'd be no opportunity for salvation. We wouldn't have any idea. It's kind of a moot point to really think about. There was no sin, because we have to deal with the reality of sin. But why? Why was salvation so far off for them? Why did God have to wait? Well, that's just one of those things. Man had to be prepared. And that's one of the beauties of the Old Testament. Remember, the Old Testament was the training ground. It was the preparation, and especially for the nation of Israel, to prepare them for that. When the Messiah come, they were supposed to be ready for him. They were supposed to be able to pick up the Old Testament that we call it today, the Scriptures, and read them and see, hey, he's doing everything. Jesus is doing everything that the Old Testament, the Scriptures say the Messiah would do. And that was the testimony of him by so many people at the time that he came. But you know, even then, they were still like caught in the fog or caught in the smoke. They just could not see the reality of it until his death, burial, and resurrection. But there's still some things going on with David. In this passage, remember, David has been called to be the king. He's been anointed as the next king of Israel. But he's not the king yet. Saul is still the king, and he's not going to kill the king to become the king. He's going to allow nature to take its course. He's going to allow God to set the pace. When Saul's gone, he will take his rightful place on the throne. But there are a lot of enemies out there who are after David. They're trying to stop him. So David's talking about how these problems that he's facing him have impacted him. The impact that they've had on him. Now, the problems that we face have an impact on us, don't they? My life, I see things as problems, and they impact me. Problems get in my way. Problems, I've got to deal with this problem. I've got to deal with that problem. But I think what we learn from scriptures, the problem isn't the problem. The problem is how we deal with the problems. The problems are there for our growth. The problems are there for a reason. The real problem that we have isn't the problem that's in the way. The problem that we have is the problem of dealing with problems. How am I going to deal with it? What am I going to do? Am I going to deal with this problem in a positive way or a negative way? That's really what the problem is, because whatever comes up is usually a natural process in this world. And there's nothing that I'm going to face, nothing that you're going to face that somebody hasn't already faced. And, you know, in whatever generations are left upon this earth, there'll be others that are going to face them also. So there's nothing new. So we can learn from others' experiences. We can learn a lot from the experiences of people in the Bible, going through the same things that we're going through. How did they handle the problems? But what David is talking about is this process of having to deal with the problems, going through them. And here's what he says, verses 83 and 84. For I have become like a wineskin in the smoke, yet I have not forgotten your statutes. How long must your servant endure? When will you judge those who persecute me? What's the problem? People are persecuting him. People are trying to stop him in whatever way, shape, or form. Before he's king, people are trying to stop him. Saul's trying to stop him, right? Others, his own brothers are trying to get him to shut up and sit down. You're just trying to show off. Just be quiet. Go back home to the sheep. When he gets to be king, some of Saul's relatives are persecuting him. Others who want power are persecuting him. So he's got all these problems all through life. But what he says is, I have become like a wineskin in the smoke. Now what's a wineskin? Well, a wineskin for them, what they would do is they'd take an animal skin. After they trap an animal, they'd skin it out. They take that wineskin and they kind of cure it, or the skin of the animal, they cure it and they fix it up, and they would put the grape juice in there, and then pour wine from a cask or whatever. They put it in there to store it. It would act like a canteen, right? So if you imagine them being out on the battlefield, or in some cases when David is actually running from his enemies, he's probably got a few wineskins because water's hard to find. Grab some wineskins, let's go, a little bit of food. We're out there, they're out, they're camping out. So they got all their provisions there, and they've got a campfire going, they're cooking some food. And you can imagine there's some smoke going, and David is sitting there and he's thinking about what's going on. And here's this wineskin in the smoke. Now, wineskins, and if you think about what Jesus said you don't put new wine in an old wineskin. Why? Because if you put new wine, when you put grape juice in there and it becomes wine, it ferments, it expands, right? And the wineskin expands. So if it does that a couple times and you put new wine in there and it expands more, it's going to burst. But because it was an organic material, it's going to do a lot of other things. It's going to expand, it might even shrink, it's going to absorb odors. It can disintegrate, but it can take on stains. So you imagine this wineskin hanging beside a campfire in the smoke. And what it's going to look like, what that smoke is going to do to that wineskin. It's like it's going to age it. It's going to get dirty and black and sooty. It's going to look like it's been dragged around all over the countryside. It might expand because of the heat, but it's not going to look the same as it was before. And I think that's what David is trying to tell us, that that's what his life has become with all these problems that he's got going on in his life. It's like that wineskin dangling in the smoke of the campfire. Physically, his life has been changed because of all these things that he's had to go through. Imagine that, how many years he had to be out on the run. On the run from Saul. On the run from the Philistines. On the run from the other enemies. On the run from his own son, Absalom, who tries to take the kingdom away from him. We think of David, here's a man after God's own heart, and think about how many people were after him, trying to do him in. He was physically being changed by the processes of all these problems, but he's still looking at it in the sense of the problems aren't the problems. The problem is, how am I going to deal with this problem? Or all of these problems. His faith in God never changes. Look what it says there in that 83rd verse. Yet I have not forgotten your statutes. It's very easy for David to blame God. It's God's fault. God, you gave. Remember when God went to Moses, Moses said, I'm not the man for the job. Not me. Send my brother Aaron. Well, David gets the job as king. I'm not the man. You shouldn't have given me this job, God. I can't handle it. No, David was the perfect choice for it because he was a man after God's own heart. Because in all of these problems, he still has not forgotten God's precepts. They're still there in front of him. He hasn't forgotten God's statutes. They're always there before him. How's he going to handle all of these problems? He's going to handle it God's way. And that's why he's going to be successful in all of these endeavors. That's why he's going to be able to handle all of these problems in a positive way and be triumphant. Now, the problems David faced exposed his associates as either friends or foes. Talk a little bit about this morning. Okay? So maybe all of this wasn't so much a test for David because God knew what David could stand. Maybe it was a test for all those associates of David. So David could know where they stood. Because there are people in this life that they'll stand beside you and say, I've got your back, bud. I've got your back. And then the problem comes, and they're the one who puts a knife in your back. You don't want them behind you, okay? You find out who your friends and your foes are when the problems come in life. And that's what David is finding out. The problems we face may not be totally our challenges. They may be there for our learning, that God knows we can get through them, but they're for somebody else. They're a test of somebody else's courage, faith, fidelity. Faith and fidelity are the same thing, but their loyalty to you. That may be more of a test for those around us, exposing who's for or against us. Look at verses 85 and 86. The insolent have dug pitfalls for me. They do not live according to your law. All your commandments are sure. They persecute me with falsehood. And David says, help me. Help me what? Help me what? Help me discern truth from false. Help me discern friend from foe. Help me to know who I can trust and who I shouldn't trust. Is that not what David is saying? They've dug pitfalls for me. Which ones is it? Is it the enemy that I can spot, or is it the enemy that's pretending to be my friend? Who's doing this? They do not live according to your law. You know, bad people don't live according to God's law. Sometimes we get naive, don't we? I had a situation that came up a week before last. Anyway, people coming to our home for something, and it ended up being a sales pitch for something. I thought it was totally something different. And after it was over, I said, maybe I'm naive, but I thought it was for what you're selling. What you're doing was this, but it's totally this. No. But sometimes we just can't see the dividing line, I guess. What is there? So, David's enemies, more importantly, because they were fighting now against God's anointed. Remember, David would not fight against God's anointed. Saul, he would not kill God's anointed Saul because he was a man of God, right? That didn't stop the people who were after him. He's God's anointed. That wasn't going to stop them. They're going after him. And they'd kill him if they got the chance, even though he was God's anointed. Even though they might go down to the tabernacle with him to worship God. They'd still take him out if they got the opportunity. David's enemies were God's enemies. That's the important thing, because God had this plan. David's going to be the king. And anybody who's going to see that, anybody who was against that, was going against God. Doesn't matter what their intentions were. David's enemies wanted him to fail for earthly reasons. So what was that? They wanted power. And as long as David was there, they couldn't have it. So they needed to get rid of David. They didn't care what God said, because they didn't play by the same set of rules. They didn't go by God's laws. The enemies of God don't play by the rules. God's people are rules players. We hope and pray, because we're supposed to be rules players. We play by the rules. We play by standards. Yes. And we try to treat everybody the same, whether they are friend or foe. But the enemies of God are not like that. They treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter to them who they cheat, who they steal from, who they lie to. It simply doesn't matter. The enemies of God have no conscience about lying. They have no conscience about making false charges about people. They simply don't. Because all that's in their eyesight is getting what they want. Having it their way. Having their power. So we have to play by the rules. Let God be the fair judge of it all on Judgment Day. And again, as we talked about in the book of Job, There may not be justice on this earth, but there will be justice in eternity. And we've got to always remember that. Now, the third point that we look at in this psalm, this portion of the psalm, standing firm and allowing God to take vengeance saved David's life. Standing firm. I still stand in your statutes. I still do your will, God. And allowing God to take vengeance. Now, think about that in terms of not pursuing Saul, killing Saul, and taking the kingdom. Let nature take its course. Okay? Justice did come, all right, in that instance, but that's something that saved David's life. If David had tried to kill Saul, maybe God would not have been on his side. That would have shown David not to be a man of God. He wouldn't have received the blessings of God. Look at verse 87. They have almost made an end of me on earth, but I have not forsaken your precepts. They came this close to killing. That's what David said. And there were probably a few times they came very close to killing David. Maybe we could say he escaped by the skin of his teeth. Which isn't very much, right? He escaped. They almost made an end of me on earth. Now that wasn't going to affect his eternity. And he knew that. He understood that. He had to remain the same on earth to secure eternity. And that's what the second part is about. I've not forsaken your precepts. If they would have killed me, well, it wasn't life and death, it was life and eternal life. That was the choice. So rather than choose life over death, I'd have taken the death to have eternal life. But I'm going to stay with your precepts because that's where eternal life is. So commitment to God is not a guarantee of earthly existence. Okay? Just because we obey God doesn't mean He's going to give us a long life. Think how many of our brothers and sisters were martyred in the first century. Stephen, a righteous man? Yes, he was. Did that get him a long life? Not on this earth, but in eternity it did. That was the choice that he had to make. That's the choice each of us has to make. So commitment to God is an assurance of a right relationship with God, which leads to eternal life. It's not an assurance of long life here on this earth, but it can help because it'll make a long life here upon this earth more pleasant, more delightful, more blessed, because we walk in God's ways. Now Saul's relatives and David's son Absalom, these who sought to take the kingdom, those who sought to kill David, think about their lives. Their lives were cut short too, weren't they? But think about their eternal destination. That's not going to be good for them, is it? Though David sinned at times, he refused to kill Saul and gain the kingdom. He wouldn't lift his hand against God's anointed. That's a part of those precepts. That's a part of his being a man after God's own heart. And that's what allowed him to have the patience, to have the endurance, to go through the physical trials and tribulations of this life like a wineskin in the smoke, to look so terrible at times, not like a king sitting on a throne, but like someone who is always constantly running from danger. Maybe missed a couple meals. Maybe not slept in his own bed for a couple weeks. Maybe slept on the ground or slept in a cave somewhere to avoid being captured. And all of this is clearly like Psalm or Isaiah chapter 53. It's messianic and it's prophecy. You know, Isaiah 53. If you read that, you can't help but see the crucifixion of Jesus. You know, he's led as a lamb to the slaughter. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't even defend himself. All that stuff there, clearly messianic, talking about Christ. And to a large degree, this is talking about Jesus too. Think about how Jesus endured the persecution that he endured while he was here in this world, while he walked on this earth. Many of the religious leaders of the first century, religious leaders, were instrumental in the persecution, crucifixion of Jesus. They were religious people. They had no problem lying about him, promoting false charges against him, voting to have him crucified. No problem. Because their part wasn't on doing God's will. Their part was on the power. Because we allow him to live, we're going to lose our power. We're going to lose our place. That's what they understood. And all of that, Jesus did not forsake God's precepts. And the Bible tells us that he was obedient even to death, the death of the cross. And we're to remain faithful, which means be obedient unto death, so that we can gain a crown of life. The hope David was searching for was God's righteous judgment in raising Jesus from the dead. Now, he couldn't see that. He couldn't understand that through the smoke. And there he was. He was right in the middle of it, wasn't he? That was what was working on him physically. But spiritually, he had the faith. He knew that he could get through all of that because of what was going to happen. And here we are with our problems in life. And yes, there's a lot of smoke. And that smoke sometimes, that little bit of doubt still lingers in our minds. Okay? But we can look back and we say, yes, Jesus died upon the cross, and yes, we believe he's coming back. So I can work through this problem. Because the problem's not the problem. The problem is how I work through this problem. That's my challenge. That's your challenge. That's our challenge in this life. God will make all things right on the day of judgment. We just got to be right when we get there. That's verse 88. In your steadfast love, give me life, that I may keep the testimonies of your mouth. Give me life. Don't let them kill me. Let me live as long on this earth as I can. And God, if you will do that, then all the days of my life, I'm going to testify of you. I'm going to tell people of you. I'm going to make my life an example of godly living, and I'm going to teach the lost, and I'm going to teach the saved. You know, there's both of those elements there, but yeah, I'm going to let people know what you have done. Now, this is a spiritual resurrection. Whether this, in a sense, is David in repentance, I don't really think so, but remember, David had to come to those points of time in his life where he did repent. That was important. David wasn't perfect. Sometimes I think we read the scriptures and we read about these heroes of faith and we forget they weren't perfect. There's only one that was perfect, and that was Jesus. But all these people, excuse me, Noah, Abraham, Joseph, go on through, Moses, David, these men were not perfect. They were sinners, like me. And if I had to guess, I'd say sinners like you all too. Okay? But look at the hope that they found. Look at the hope that they found. So, do we sin? Yes, we sin, but we've got the remedy for sin, and that is the key. Now, don't let sin have dominion in your life. Don't let that enslave you. We talked about that in this morning's sermon. But always be ready. Remember, those challenges are going to come. They're going to work on us like the wineskin in the smoke. Revelation 20, verse 6. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. Brothers and sisters, that's us. Yeah, that 1,000 years is not a literal 1,000 years. That's the church age. That's right now, and that's for every Christian. That's us. We are partakers, sharers in the first resurrection. What is that? Well, the new birth. Okay? And therefore, the second death's not going to have any power over us, but we've got to be priests of God and Christ and reign with him. He's our king. We're reigning with him. Our time on this earth, the church is going to reign with him until he comes back again. Key to it all. Now, here, David says that he's like a wineskin in the smoke, right? David would be refreshed in spirit, trusting in God to work out his purpose. And what do you think of David now in the spirit, in the Hadean realm, knowing that Christ has come and died upon the cross and secured his salvation, and he's just waiting for Christ to come back, bring his spirit back and put it in that body and resurrect it, take him back to heaven with us. I think David feels now. What a wonderful thing. That's the lesson. That's the lesson. Beautiful songs. Beautiful songs. God's word always is wonderful. I find so much. Hey, thank you for your time. Thank you.